Welcome to Connection, the channel where everyone's voice matters. My name is Belitista Legrand, or you can call me Actress of Change. And I'm pleased to be your host on Connection. If you're new to Connection, what should you expect? You should expect to meet inspiring men and women who take the time to serve themselves first, to be able to serve others through their communities or beyond. And today, I'm very excited to introduce you to a woman who is super inspiring through what she's been through and as well how she was able to turn things around and to make it benefit to others. Let me introduce you to Jessie Patterson. For some of you, this name may sound familiar, indeed, because I got the opportunity to interview actually her husband, Mr. Andrew Patterson, who decided in 2018 to climb the Table Mountain in Cape Town for South Africa, the 365 Ubuntu project. However, this is another story, and let's focus on Jessie Patterson. So Jessie Patterson is actually a former real estate development executive with nearly 20 years of experience, and now is focused on the most valuable real estate in the world, the mind and body. That is why she founded NourishX. Jessie is on a mission to inspire optimal well-being globally and is focused on breaking down change to micro steps to help others regain their time and well-being to achieve their next level. Please welcome Jessie Patterson.
Thank you for creating such an amazing community and following your heart to do what lights you up. It's just amazing to cheer other people on. So I just want to acknowledge you and congratulate you.
Thank you so much. It's absolutely to have you online and yes, like again, I love what you have created, what Andrew as well created, and the two of you match so well and are bringing so much fire and light to this world. So I'm very pleased that Andrew introduced me to you. And actually, Jessie, could you please tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, so I worked really hard and for a lot of years to become an executive in real estate development. And I really thought I found the career that I could spend the rest of my life in. And like many of us, I was working long hours and starting to really not feel well. And the more I started leaning into self-care and understanding how much better I could feel, I realized so many of us aren't really taught how to take care of ourselves. And that I went through so many years of struggling with my health and stress levels, and we're not taught the daily routines. And so through many years of doctor's appointments and trying different things, I was able to finally feel health in a way that I didn't know was achievable. And so often we think the steps to becoming healthy or becoming that next best version of ourselves is all these huge things. And it really comes down to our daily habits. And so often we try to change everything at once and end up changing nothing at all, right? Like we've all done that. I mean, I could list like a million things. I tried like this year is going to be the year that I do this. And then we end up not doing it, right?
Yes, that's totally yes.
We've all done that and we all get stuck there. And I realize so many of us have this massive potential of not just feeling healthy, but doing something we love and are passionate about. And I've really realized that so many of us are utilizing our technology. That's where we're spending all of our time, right? We're spending more time on our phones and our laptops than we are with people we love. And so by learning to improve your relationship with your technology, you're really learning how to improve your relationship with yourself. And I think we're often so worried about charging our technology, right? Like think about how many like external chargers or back in the days when you used to go out to places, every restaurant and bar has like chargers, but nobody's really that concerned about charging ourselves, right? And I think this last year, we just feel more drained. And so it's really helping inspire people to break down changes to really small steps that make anything achievable so we stop being stuck. And we often, as humans, all get stuck. And so many of us just end up there. So I'm really excited and passionate about following my heart to help other people.
Mhm. And yes, I can confirm it. I feel it. I see it. And actually, yes. Like, can you tell us more about why did you create like NourishX?
Yeah, I really want to help inspire people to optimize their well-being. We're so often focused on, I don't want this, I don't want to be sick, I don't want to be stressed out all the time. But it's really learning the small micro habits, and the micro habits are tiny, tiny changes that actually are what make up our life. Versus, I think I want to do this big thing one day. It's really the tiny changes that we do every day that make up our wellness. And so much of how we feel is what we think and our habits, and learning how to instill those right behaviors in people, because you look around and so many people are so stressed out, they're working so hard, and they're not happy and they're not feeling nourished. And I think as a society globally, we're over consuming and we're undernourished. And my goal with NourishX is to help people learn how to really stop and take time for themselves and learn how to nourish themselves. And it's within these small actions that we end up learning how to become the next best version of ourselves.
Yeah, because it's actually when you do like this little small steps that actually they stack up, and then it becomes a snowball effect.
Yes. And we often overlook the small steps. Like, I just need to do all these things, right? Because we often do it. Like, I need to eat healthy. I need to do this. I need to work out. And then it feels like it's just all too much. And then we haven't built up the habits. And so I'm a really big fan of micro steps, which is just breaking down habits really small and starting one at a time, because anybody can make 1 minute of change a day. But often we think it has to be an hour or 2 hours or changing everything. And then we get stuck. And so the more that we can learn to break down habits into really small steps with the right triggers and cues and creating the certainty in the habit, I always say that you don't stop brushing your teeth, right? We're all taught we brush our teeth every day. If we have a day that somehow we don't do it, we don't stop. But with self-care and taking care of ourselves, or any of the habits to de-stress ourselves, if we often get on a kick and then stop doing it, we just stop. And so it's learning how to combat stress, because stress is one of the biggest epidemics facing humanity right now. It controls our immune system, and our bodies aren't able to react in the way of rest and digest when we're really in that state of calm and healing ourselves. We're often in the state of fight or flight, where the nervous system is just out of whack because we feel like we're being chased by a tiger. And it sounds so crazy, but we can get notifications on our phone that are invoking that same response. And whether it's a text from your boss or an email or some notification on Instagram, these small triggers are constantly triggering our fight or flight. And what we're not doing as a society is building in small steps to learn how to get our nervous system into the rest and digest, where then we're able to think more clearly, our bodies are able to heal, and we're able to just be the best version of ourselves. But 2020, we can all relate. It's like, it just was everything all the time, right? Like, there's a new term called doom scrolling, where you're searching the internet for bad news and then you end up on one thing and looking at more news. And it's like, these are new terms because it is something that as society, we're starting to get more into looking for all the bad. And that's because as we've evolved, we've meant to try to keep ourselves safe, right? So keeping up with headline news, you feel like you're protecting yourself from feeling safe. And I don't think anything is about giving up technology or getting rid of it. It's just learning how to set boundaries where you feel better. And so often it's what we're consuming on a daily basis. And that's with what we're reading, what we're listening to. You know, if you're starting your day listening to a podcast with you interviewing people, you're going to feel a lot better than if you're starting your day off listening to headline news. And so it's these small little changes you can start testing out, because it's going to be different for everyone, of figuring out what habits are helping you feel your best. And often we're just doing things every day as out of repetition versus like, is this really what makes me feel my best?
Yes, and it's all about like being the master of how you use technology rather than the reverse, like rather than how technology uses you as their servants. And as well, as you mentioned, it's all about what can we do 1% more to take care of ourselves, maybe through technology. And as well, the other thing that came to my mind is technologies are like they have, as many things, they have both sides. Like electricity or using a knife, it has a good purpose, like cutting a meat, or it may hurt somebody. And technology goes quite the same. Like it's depending how you use it, you can either grow further, better, and connect with one another, or spend your time scrolling down bad news, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I really look at our phone as like a passport to our well-being, or a passport to not being well, right? So it's how we use it. And I think we're really most of us are at the first phase of technology. It kind of showed up to us. It's designed by some of the smartest people in the world to keep our attention. And the reason why you look around society and most people are staring down on their phones is because they're designed to keep you on them. And that doesn't mean you're weak or you're doing anything wrong. It just means that we're at this phase where we haven't really been taught how to use our technology. And I think phones and technology are amazing. Like, I've learned how to charge myself using technology and really create the habits. Because if you think about it, our phones are the perfect habit creator. It's just most of us have habits that aren't helping charge us, they're draining us. And I don't think it's about giving up technology or thinking it's bad. It's just creating a better relationship. Because if every time you set down your phone, you're feeling guilty, or you feel like it just took more of your time than you wanted, that's just that's an icky feeling. And so many of us have really struggled with that. And I used to be there as well. It used to be a massive issue of mine, right? Because I don't think anyone that's used technology or used a lot of the apps that are traditionally take your time have ever just been like, nah, I've never had a problem with staying on longer than I wanted to, right? Like, that's just not human. Like, they're designed to take our attention. They're designed to give us hits of dopamine and to make us be concerned about the likes and the views. And, it's really, those aren't the things that are really helping you feel healthy or feel your best self. And so it's learning how to reimagine this relationship with technology and learning how to really think through in little steps of changes instead of changing everything at once, right? And so I'm so hopeful about how much our phones can help us with healthy habits and healthy behaviors. And I think it's the perfect source, but it's learning how to not let our minds just go to the habit that we did the day before. And like you said, the 1% better is all that we can focus on, right? When we try to make it a huge step, it feels like too much. But like 365 days of doing 1 minute of something different adds up to 6 days a year, right? So it's like when we break up these small little habits into minutes, like there's 1,440 minutes a day. And so often those tiny little checks in between things add up so much faster than what we think. And I think it's just helping create that awareness and realizing how you want to feel at the end of the day. And I'm so excited about this because I think there's so much opportunity to help people reestablish the relationship with something that they feel healthy and setting the right boundaries. And it took me years of learning from one expert here and one expert there. All these tiny little things that I finally compiled together, where I stopped having this like guilty relationship with my phone, where I would end up wanting to do all these things, right? Like, I want to read more books, or I want to listen to more of this. And you'd start out, and then like 5 minutes later, you were on your phone and you didn't even know how it happened, right? Like, and I've that is what so much of our struggling with. Like, people I've worked with, it's like, I want to do more hobbies, I want to do more things, but I always end up on my phone, right? And I think we can all relate to that. So I find that a lot of times your minds are trying to talk us out of everything all the time, right? Like, that is what our minds do. And our mind is always thinking that we have everything, we've got it figured out, or it's just this one thing and then I'll figure it out. And I've just learned these small steps that have transformed my life just by, changing. I've reduced my phone use by half, And then I've created habits every day that are charging me versus draining me, right? But it's these small steps. And through that, it's like I gained 38 days a year. So it's just these massive impacts where so many people are, I don't have time for a course right now. I'm too busy. I don't have this. That's just the ego saying, I'll get to that someday. And that's a natural, that's the first human instinct that we all have. But then it's like, well, how could this benefit you? And how could it carve more time away from you for the good things you want to do and the things that you want to do to help take care of yourself? That we often try to take care of everyone else. And we feel like work is so important. I used to be guilty of this as well. I was in a very high stress industry working on large development projects, getting them approved. And I was very dedicated to my job, and the more I realized of how to set boundaries and turning off my phone and giving myself more space, I was able to show up better and do better, right? And so often we think it's working hard and doing more, then I'll be happy, or then I'm going to succeed, where it's working smarter and learning how to be more productive. Like, we're not taught productivity in school, at least I wasn't. And so many of us have these habits that are based on technology, just taking you where technology wants you to go. I mean, studies show that you are 40% less productive by multitasking, but majority of people think they can multitask. I used to as well. And then I started learning little steps to stop multitasking. And, you still have to remind yourself every day because it's natural, but learning things to help get rid of those constant temptations, where I constantly say, think about how many tabs you have open on your computer and on your phone. And that is just impacting how you feel. And so right now we're at this epidemic of everyone being extremely busy, but not necessarily being productive. And I used to be there, and it doesn't mean that you can't succeed being there, but I think it's one of the biggest obstacles impacting our well-being is that we're all so busy, but we're being drained, and we're not as focused on being productive and focused on the habits that can really help us. And it's an epidemic right now, and a lot of us are like, I'll get to it someday, or or I already know the habits. But when it really comes down to it, not many of us do implement them. We might often know what habits we need to feel our best, right? Like knowing and doing are two totally separate things, right?
Definitely.
If you think about all the things you knew you should be doing versus what you're doing. And so often we get stuck. And it's just, again, it's down to breaking them down into extremely small steps of change. And that's where the magic is. And that is where we often don't make the New Year's resolutions we think we're going to make, right? We haven't built up the habit, which then just sets us up for failure. We have this vision of where we want to go, but we don't have all the steps in place to ensure us that we're going to do it. Exactly. And so I love working with people because we're all the same, right? Like your struggles of trying to implement a new habit are the same struggles that I've had. And once you learn how to create a supportive network and learn the small steps, and also self-compassion and kindness, right? Like it's okay to be exactly where you're at right now. And just being like, forgive yourself for anything that you think you should be farther or you think you should have done differently, because all that stuff is just weighing you down. And just being like, I'm exactly where I should be right now. Whether that's you just got laid off or you're a mom with multiple kids, like we just need to start being more kind to ourselves and stop feeling guilty all the time. And our phones are often this distraction to help us just feel different, right? So many of us are reaching for our phone out of a habit because we want to think or feel differently. And I think there's so many ways that you can slowly change those habits of just what you're looking at on your phone, or habits you can do after looking at news or things that stress you out, that take your nervous system. And these are 1-minute changes a couple times a day that I teach people how to really integrate it into their life versus like, I know I should do these things, but then I get stuck and I don't know how to do it. So I stop. Right.
But yeah.
It's those things I think we overlook so much, and it's the little things where the magic is.
Exactly. And actually, Jessie, what are techniques you could share with our audience? Like where to start?
Yep. Yeah. I think it's realizing so much about making change is creating awareness, right? Mm-hmm. So it's, why do you want to change? Because if you just first say you want to cut your phone time in half and do this, you have to get to the heart of your intention. And I think living with more intention helps you create the changes that you really want to make. So I always work with people of how to create an intention of why you want to change, whether it is that to impact more people or just to be more present with what you're working on or with your family and friends, or to get outside more. You know, it's really taking just a minute to think through, like, why do I want to make these changes? Because so often we have these changes we want to make, but unless you get to the heart of the why and the real intention, we're just going to not do it, right? Like, we've all been there. And then it's really thinking about, well, what do I want to do more of instead, right? Because you're like, I want to use my phone less and I feel great. But unless you've actually taken time to think through, like, what's the other things I'm going to do, you're just going to end up reaching for your phone again. And it's not that we shouldn't be on our phones. That is not what this is about. But it's creating a balance and a relationship that you feel healthier, but you're also making really small micro steps to step into those things that you want to be doing. And we all have a list, right? We all have a list of, I want to read more, I want to listen to more books, I want to take more, courses, or it could just be like, I want to paint more, bake more, cook more, right? Like, we all have a list of things we wish we were doing more of. But and then narrowing it down to what's that potential one thing, right? So I wanted to read more books or listen to audiobooks. That's one of my favorite things, or podcasts, right? Like, and I realized I wasn't doing it. Like, I'd be spending hours on Instagram and not listening or doing the things that I wanted to be doing, right? So it's taking a step back and creating that intention, and that replacement activity are so key to making any change. And so then it's really thinking through, what are your current behaviors with your phone? Like, establishing that current relationship, because, over 90% of us look at our phone the first thing in the morning and the last thing at night. So we're starting and ending our day with an influx of information and notifications, right? And that is just how most of us are starting our day. And if we think back to that fight or flight, that kind of stress response, we're getting that from the moment we wake up in bed to the moment we fall asleep, right? And that is how society, for the most part, is living right now. And we just feel so much stress. And it's not to say that you can't check your notifications or you can't do this, but I really find having that space, if you start and end your day right, you just feel so much better. And it's starting with 1 minute and creating habits with your phone and barriers. So I personally sleep with my phone in airplane mode and do not disturb. And I have hours set on my phone because it's so easy to forget. You can be somewhere and you're like, I'm going to look up my phone, and then you end up being on there. And it's timers and boundaries and barriers around it. So it's really big about where you keep your phone during the day and that distraction. Because if your phone, you can see it right now, all the studies show it's distracting you far more than it being in another room, right? So it's creating these small steps that are often quite simple. But what happens is knowing and doing are two separate things, and we're so used to having our phone right there. And I believe it's the small steps, and it's creating the rules that work for you, right? But it's really how you start and end your day, and then slowly have different steps in between. And I walk people through that in the course that I'm working on, because it really helps people. And so often people say, I can't do that, I wouldn't be able to do that. That's great, you can, but I can't because you don't understand X, Y, and Z, right? You're not alone. That is exactly what you're thinking. Yes, right? That is your mind just protecting you from anything new or different. And so I used to think that as well, right? And I used to 100% think that that was impossible. And you just, when you break it down to one small step, I started with having a glass of water before I checked my phone, right? Just that one small habit. And then I slowly built on it, where now I'm off my phone a couple hours in the morning. And I legitimately didn't think that was possible. Like I would have bet money, millions of dollars, that there was no way I could. And now I have a workout routine and meditation and things, but everyone's going to have a different routine. And whether it's 1 minute or 5 minutes, it's creating those small steps of space. And we don't realize how much those small steps of space are what make the biggest impact in our life. And it's overcoming the mind that is going to try to talk you out of change, right? That's natural. You're not alone. The mind is always trying to talk you out of all the things. And that is just what the mind does. So we're constantly having to go against trying to be talked out of anything that can help us really step into our best selves. And we're all human, so no one's alone with that feeling of your mind always trying to get you to do something else, even though the other thing is what you want to do. And that's what I really help work with people on, is the more we realize we're dealing with the same struggles and the same thoughts in our brain, the more we realize we can make change. It's just stepping past that mind talking us out of things.
Yes, and focusing on who we want to show up as instead of who we were before. We can rewrite our story.
And it's often asking ourselves the right questions, because the mind automatically goes to, I can't, I could never, that will never work for me, right? If any new situation, that's where the mind goes, right? So the more that you can acknowledge, that's what your mind's going to do. And then I always remind myself to then ask, well, how could I? How could I? Or how could we? Or what could work? Because when you start asking your mind those questions, you come up with incredible responses. And what happens is it's just changing that pattern. And then that small little steps of how could I do 1 minute differently? Or what could I do instead of my phone? Or how could I do more of the thing that I want to do that I'm holding myself back from? Then you start coming up with answers that work for you. And that really is what we all need to help support each other, because we're not in this alone. And I constantly am helping with my friends, and just, it's like the small steps where, my friends are burnt out moms, and it's like, or their dads and they're working too much. And it's like, how do you create the barriers and the boundaries around how to stop doing all the time and trying to do all the things? Because you can actually do more and be more when you start creating barriers and boundaries and rules for yourself. We work really well with rules. That's why we brush our teeth twice a day. We've been created and programmed to do that. So creating other habits is just as easy, but it's figuring out how to break them down and how to realize how to track them, and the other small steps of reminders that are so important to help you get out of your own way.
Yes, and it's as well about identifying bad habits by replacing them by better ones, and on the second step as well, to build habits next to already existing habits.
Yes,
this makes a difference.
It's so key, right? Like, it's that you can easily place habits onto, before I brush my teeth, I'm going to do this. Or before I check my phone in the morning, I'm going to do this. Or every night before I charge my phone, I'm going to set out my workout clothes, because then I'll see my workout clothes in the morning and know I've committed to working out, right? So it's the more that you can add your habit to something existing, and I talk a lot about that in the course, it just constantly reminds you. And those are the things as humans that we have to get better at, and we have to get better at supporting each other, because the same struggle someone else is going through, you've gone through it, or you're currently going through it. And that's why so much of what we can do is helping encourage each other for our good habits, and realize that we're all on this constant struggle. And, if I got rid of all the rules that I set, I would be exactly back where I was with my phone and technology. But then I've realized I feel so much better. I have so much more energy and health and clearer mindset that I didn't know was possible back when I thought I couldn't do that. I can't do that. I'm too busy. We all have the same reasons of why I'm not going to make change right now, because it's going to happen, but someday, or I'm already good with where I'm at, right? Like that's where I'll sit at. And I just realized that so many of us are struggling with how we're feeling. And the thing that we're spending the most time with is our technology. So if you can improve your relationship with your technology, you can improve your relationship with your mindset, with how you feel, and with others around you. And there's so much of our time, like the average person spends 2.5 hours on social media per day, and that adds up to 75 days a year. So we're all saying we're so busy, but we're not as busy as we think we're consuming and doing. But when it comes down to it, we're not as busy doing the things that we want to be doing. And so I think it's just learning small steps and learning how to reestablish relationships with some of the technology that we might overuse. And I think it's about not giving it up, but it's how to reimagine and curate. Are you following the right people? Are you on it for the right amount? Slowly reducing it, maybe adding some more inspiration, maybe cutting out some people that you're following that aren't helping you feel your best, and then slowly making these changes. But what happens is we just are a product of our habits the day before. And on average, we think about 60,000 thoughts per day. And those thoughts are the same as the day before. And same with our habits. And our habits make up about 40% of who we are. So if you can make small changes, you really end up making profound changes in your life. But what we do is we think the change looks so big that we stay paralyzed. And we've all been there. And so it's really helping people feel inspired to make that one small step, because it's often the commitment of the change of energy. Like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to start making one small step and building in these habits, versus I'm going to do all these steps and end up right back where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Jessie, for sharing. And I know as well that, so you're very attached to the mind and body structure, but as well, you have other close mission close to your heart. So would you like to share with us, who do you support and why? Like, we already have quite a sample here, but tell us more about it.
Yeah, I was so involved with real estate development. I loved seeing big shiny buildings that I was involved on, getting them approved and built, and having residents move in and retail tenants. And there was something so exciting about that. But it wasn't until I started working with so many nonprofits and seeing the impact they were having in the local kids' lives when I was living in San Francisco, or when I helped fundraise to build a school with Pencils of Promise in Guatemala. And that school in Guatemala changed my life. I was able to go see a school that I was able to thankfully have a lot of support from the community of people I worked with, and to see the generational impact that education brings. And, it helps you put things in perspective when you're like, we just have so much to be grateful for. I'm like, if you can read right now, there's 250 million kids in the world that can't read or write. And I know that that's something we can change in our lifetime together. This is not something as complex as Elon Musk sending people to Mars. I think that's a great endeavor, but I'm really motivated on how do we create the best place here? And I really, truly believe by supporting education, food, and water and housing, those are the needs that everybody, I believe, deserves. I believe those are a basic human right. And so I support these 6 organizations that I know are helping change the world. And I think the more that we integrate doing good into our businesses, the more that we create those ripples of change. And, I studied sustainability within real estate development. So I've always been really big on how do you make more green buildings and how do you create more social impact. Those have always been really who I am. But now creating my own business where I'm helping people be the best selves, I think it also is good to put it in perspective of by every investment you make in NourishX, by investing and helping uplift yourself, you're helping uplift other humans in the world, both locally and abroad. And I think that that ripple of change is what we need more of, because just like we think that changing the small things in our life, we make them these big things that we can't change. Getting education and water and housing and food to everyone on the planet is not impossible. It's just everyone doing one tiny thing. And so I'm really excited and believe so strongly that these are things that we can do. And as you know, talking to Andrew, my husband, if anyone's listened to him, we just are so grateful we found each other, because it's really at the core of who we are, of helping that change. And, you know, working with these nonprofits that I work with has become a core part of who I am. And I was able to create a program in San Francisco that connected kids and nonprofits I was working with to helping build schools. And so I created a program called Read to Build, because about 85% of the kids in low-income schools in San Francisco, so in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, they at low-income schools, the kids are drastically below age level in reading. And this is before the pandemic, before online learning. So it's hard to imagine where we're at now. But with the program, it was embedding purpose into the kids' reading. So every kid throughout the summer would keep track, and almost like a little thermometer shaped like a pencil, of their reading hours. And it was embedding purpose and creating more fun around reading. So we would have award parties and pizza parties and different parties when they hit their milestones. And we created awards where kids would be like the most improved or putting in the most effort. And watching the kids see, when I took back pictures of the school that they helped build in Ghana, to the kids in San Francisco that feel like they often don't have enough, right? And that's something I grew up, you know, with a single mom and not having a lot of money. And so I understand that feeling of feeling like you just don't have as much as other people and you just want more than them. But what I've learned is it's more of what we give, of how we feel. And to see the kids seeing the impact of what they could give to other kids around the world was life-changing. So I've now built, you know, with a great community of supporters, 4 schools with Pencils of Promise. And I'm really on a mission to help create more change and bring more impact. And so these nonprofits are the first 6 that I'm going to support. I ideally will expand, but I'm starting with some of the 6 closest to my heart, and really helping people believe that this change that we want to see is so much closer than what we think it is.
Yes, taking it one step at a time. And
not think that it's overwhelming. You know, everyone always says that will never happen. And I'm always like, but why not? Why is this not achievable? And, you know, and then saying, well, think about, I always use the comparison of like, everyone knows British pubs. It's like usually like the 4 horses or the 2 bells. And I'm like, do you know why they're called that and why they have the picture out front? And it's because literacy used to not be as common, where the names of pubs were named that way because people couldn't read in England, right? So this is not that long ago. And so to help embed literacy programs globally is not that far reached, you know? So it's how, and I really think it's about infusing purpose within it, because so often we're striving for the next job, the next paycheck, I'll be happy when, and it's really not those things. It's the small daily habits. And I help go over that in my course as well, that it's really the small things of giving back, being kind, your daily practices that are going to help you feel fulfilled instead of this one thing someday.
Totally. And Jessie, would you have like a last message to our audience you would like to share?
Yeah, I think it's stop letting your mind control your destiny. I learned the more I stepped out of my comfort zone and did things that scared me. You know, I used to think I would never travel by myself. You know, even the thought of back in high school, going to the mall by myself would make me want to feel like I was going to throw up, right? Like I was terribly scared of a lot of things. And now I've lived in multiple countries, traveled on my own. And it's the more we step into that fear The fear of change can be so crippling often. And the more we can do little things to step into that change, the more that we unlock the things that are holding us back and stepping into our truest self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. I definitely agree that the more we open up ourselves to what's in front of us, to experiences, the more we say yes to what may scare us, the more we expand actually our zone of comfort, and the more we realize the potential we have within. And yeah,
that you admire the most, and learning as much as you can about them, because I've learned so many of the people that you think have it all figured out and life is perfect and easy, if you find out their story, most of them struggled with one thing or another. They had to overcome it, and it's really within that struggle is your strength. And I think as society has gone through this massive change and loss of the life we used to know, and everyone's dealing with loss and struggle right now, just realizing that there's so much strength within all of us, that this is creating a beautiful new future whilst we're going through something that's really hard and heavy right now.
Yes, and definitely, and as well, like Jessie, how can we connect with you and go more in depth with your work?
Yeah, thank you. My website, NourishX.com, which is NourishX.com. You can read more about me, see more about the Impact Partners, and there's also the Enroll, where if you're interested in digital balance, that is a great way to get started and let yourself not talk yourself out of change and, start those small steps. I'm also at NourishXCO on Instagram, or you can find me on LinkedIn. And I'm just really here to help people. And I'm really excited to help serve more people making those changes in their lives to then help make more impact in the world.
Thank you so much, Jessie. And well, for everyone in the audience, do know that Jessie is making a special deal for all of you listening to attend her program and to make the most of your time and to make you earn, over a few minutes day by day, by learning in a few hours what took Jessie years to understand and together all together. So this is your code. It's very old school, but let's go. So you go on Jessie website on NourishX, and you put the code CEM20 to get you 20% discounts on any of the program you want. And thank you so much for the gesture as well, Jessie.
Just make sure you use that code. It will be at the last page before you click at. It's at the top of the page. It can be kind of hard to find, but you can always reach out if you have any questions. And anyone that's ready to start making these small changes, because it's the not letting your mind talk you out of it, which we all have been at. And it's as soon as you let yourself kind of free from being stuck, things just feel so much lighter.
Yes, and as well as you mentioned, again, for anyone contributing to one of the program of Jessie, do know that your contribution is making a difference to one of the charity, because $50 is going to one of the 6 charity. So this is as well could be a motivation point for you, because you're not making only a difference to yourself but others through contributing to working for yourself to be better at life.
And I think it's just such a great way. I've spent so many years planning nonprofit fundraisers and, planning events. And this is just such a magical way to kind of build that in. So I will still always be planning events for nonprofits, because that's the heart of who I am. But this is just a way to start also earning extra money for them. And I just think that they're so needed. And we have so many people that are so grateful for the help that you can provide them. And it helps pass on so much in this world, the more we can just help others out a little bit.
Indeed. Well, Jessie, thank you so much for coming up on Connection. I'm very pleased to have you on board and to raise awareness on digital consumption, digital behavior, digital healthy habits to be and to have. And thank you so much for raising awareness on that. And for everyone, for always more inspiration, continue to watch us. And as well, if you're new to Connection, subscribe to receive more and more men and women inspiring to new possibilities. And once again, Jessie, thank you so much for coming up on Connection. Thank you, everyone. You're most welcome. Thank you, everyone. See you in 2 next Fridays.